The New York judge who vanished in 1930 after knowing too much is Judge Joseph Crater. What kind of man disappears in Manhattan without a body, without a verified sighting, without a single provable step after the last taxi ride? And what if the most frightening part isn't that Judge Joseph Force Crater vanished, but when he vanished, right as New York's political and judicial world was starting to crack open under corruption scrutiny? Because in August 1930, Crater didn't just go missing, he became a national obsession, the missingest man in New York. And his name turned into slang, to pull a crater, meaning to vanish without a trace. Nightclubs joked, "Judge Crater, call your office." But behind the punchline is a darker question. Did Crater run, or was Crater removed? Joseph Force Crater was a New York State Supreme Court justice, not a minor figure, not a drifter. He moved in political circles and wore the kind of respectability that normally acts like armor. Yet even the most polished men have seams. Crater had a reputation for enjoying the city's nightlife, so much so that Good Time Joe became one of his nicknames in the public retelling. That matters, because in old New York, the night was a second city layered on top of the first. Clubs, showgirls, private tables, quiet favors, and private knowledge. And knowledge, especially the wrong kind, can get you erased. August 6th, 1930, the day that shouldn't have ended like this. Here's where the case starts to feel designed. On the day Crater disappeared, multiple accounts describe him gathering files and folders from his office, taking them toward his apartment, and arranging to have two checks cashed, $3,000 and $1,200, into large bills, large denominations, quietly portable, the kind of cash you don't withdraw for groceries. Later, investigators would discover his safe deposit box had been emptied, and two briefcases connected to him were missing. Then the night arrives. The city's heat, the neon, the crowds near Times Square, and Crater is last reliably placed in Manhattan on August 6, 1930. After that, nothing. A judge disappears in the capital of noise and leaves behind only silence. The investigation? Too big to fail, and still failing. New York didn't treat this like an average missing person case. The publicity was massive. Leads flooded in. Thousands of sightings, most of them worthless, some of them delusional, some of them hoaxes. A grand jury was convened. It called 95 witnesses and generated 975 pages of testimony, and still couldn't conclude if Crater was alive, dead, voluntarily absent, amnesiac, or the victim of crime. That sentence is the most terrifying artifact in the file, a formal admission that the system could not even classify his disappearance. Years later, Crater would be declared legally dead on June 6, 1939. But legally dead is paperwork. It isn't closure. And eventually the NYPD case file was officially closed decades later, with the mystery still intact. The Crater story has always carried a second trail through the nightlife world. One account notes Crater dined the night he vanished with showgirl Sally Lou Ritz, and that two women left town abruptly after his disappearance. Details that kept suspicion swirling around who knew what and who fled what. This is important because it creates two possibilities at once. And if Crater wanted to vanish, the nightlife world offered routes, names, and hiding places. If someone wanted him silenced, the nightlife world offered deniability and disposal. Either way, the night becomes the perfect weapon, loud enough to hide anything. Knowing too much, the corruption atmosphere. Crater's disappearance is often framed as he knew too much, because it unfolded during an era when New York's political and judicial systems were under intensifying scrutiny for corruption and machine-style influence. A context widely discussed in accounts of the case, and here's the detail that gives that phrase its teeth. Crater didn't just disappear. He appeared to prepare, cash turned into large bills, boxes emptied, briefcases gone, files moved. Those are not the actions people associate with a casual night out that went wrong. So the question sharpens. What was in those files, and who benefited from them never resurfacing? If you love this kind of deep investigative mystery told like a noir thriller, like the video and subscribe to Behind the Veil Truths, because the next layer of this case is where New York starts to look complicit. The four exit doors, theories that won't die. Almost every Crater theory falls into one of four doors, each with darkness behind it. Door 1, he ran. Cash, emptied boxes, missing briefcases. It can look like a controlled exit. But vanishing permanently, without one confirmed later identity, requires help, luck, and silence. Door 2, he was murdered. The city's oldest explanation. A hit, a clean disposal, no trace. Yet the surviving public record lacks the one thing that would end debate. A body or a proven crime scene. Door 3, an accident that became a cover-up. A night, alcohol, the wrong people, panic afterward, then a quiet cleanup. It's plausible because it matches how messy human decisions can be. While still producing a tidy disappearance, Door 4, he was erased by power. Not a dramatic alleyway murder, something colder, pressure, leverage, forced disappearance, or permanent silencing. This is why the new too much story keeps resurrecting itself. And the cruel truth, every theory explains some evidence, but none explains all of it. The legend, when a missing man becomes a city's private joke. For years, comedians used the line, "Judge Crater, call your office." A studio even ran a publicity stunt offering money if he showed up in person. That's how New York survives fear. It laughs. But jokes are often what people tell themselves when the real story is too close to the truth. Because a judge doesn't vanish like a lost wallet. A judge vanishes like a file that someone needed gone. Final scene, the taxi into black. Picture the last clean image we have of him. A man with legal power, social access, and private habits, moving through Midtown like any other night. Lights, crowds, heat off the asphalt, the city breathing, and then a taxi ride that becomes a trapdoor. No witness who can say where he went. No proof of where he ended. Only preparations that look like either escape or prelude. So here's the cliffhanger that refuses to die. If Crater was running, who was he running from? And if Crater was silenced, what secret was worth making a judge disappear? Like and subscribe to Behind the Veil Truths, because this mystery doesn't end here. It splits, it branches, and one of those branches points straight into the machinery of 1930s New York. Questions for the comments. 1. Do you believe Crater planned his disappearance, or was he taken? Why? 2. What do you think was in the missing files from briefcases? 3. If this happened today, would a public official still be able to pull a Crater? 4. Which theory do you want me to build episode 2 around? The escape or the erasure?